So let's discuss some important fluid properties. Starting from viscosity. Okay, so what is viscosity? So before understanding what is viscosity, let's understand something like this. So when you have two solid surfaces, say I have kept a book on a table, okay, and when I try to move one relative to other, there exists a friction, right? That we have seen long back. So there is a friction that exists between the table and the block when I try to move the block relative to the table. So when two solid bodies are in contact, move relative to each other, friction force develops in direction opposing to the motion. Similarly, so when you have a solid object moving in a fluid, so this is a fluid, when you want to move this solid object in a fluid, the fluid exerts a friction force on the solid object. Say I am trying to move this solid object with a force F, then the fluid exerts a friction force F on both sides. I mean, this is the total force that is exerted by the fluid, summing up from the top and the bottom. So similarly, just like when two solid objects you try to move relative to each other, there exists a friction. When you try to move a solid object in a fluid, or when a fluid mass moves relative to a solid, there exists a friction force in between them which opposes the relative motion. Okay, so now how does this what is the source of this friction? I mean, why does it comes? So this comes from the fact that we have already seen the no slip condition. So say I try to move the solid object related to the fluid, so the fluid here will tend to occupy the same velocity as of the solid object, and the far away there is the velocity profile will be something like this. So when I try to move this fluid, the fluid will occupy something like this. The velocity profile of the fluid, and thereby a velocity gradient is set up. So that comes from the fact that the fact that there is an internal fluid pressure. So how viscosity is defined is, viscosity is basically a measure of resistance to the deformation. Is measure of resistance to deformation, or resistance to fluid motion, you can say. So this is basically due to the internal friction force that develops between different layers. So let me just write down the definition and then I'll explain. So between different layers of fluid as they are forced to move relative to each other. Okay, so let's take an example. Say you have a stationary surface, and you have a plate, and everywhere you have the fluid. When you try to move this plate with say force F, okay, so what will happen? So initially, after some initial transients, it is observed that this top plate moves continuously with a steady velocity. Okay, so the immediate fluid layer which is in contact with the top plate will move with the velocity v, and but now on the stationary surface you should have a fluid which is stationary, because here no slip condition has to exist everywhere. So here the fluid which is in contact with the top plate will move with the velocity of the plate. The fluid in contact with the bottom stationary surface will be stationary. And now in between, so now say this fluid is stationary, so the immediate layer will have some velocity because of this effect, will have some velocity but less than that. So in a sense, So now, I mean, coming from the top, say this fluid velocity, this fluid layer which is just immediate to the, just below the top plate, will move with the velocity v. Now the fluid layer just below this will try to oppose the motion of this fluid, the top layer. So say this is layer 1 and this is layer 2. So now layer 1 will try to move with velocity v, and layer 2 you have, so layer 2 will try to exert a force on layer 1 and try to slow it down, whereas layer 1 on layer 2 will try to move it forward. So this is basically like your Newton's third law. So layer 2 is exerting a force F to oppose, and that force is your friction force, and the source of that is because of viscosity. Okay, and that depends on the, see, it's the same experiment if you do it in air or same experiment you do in water, the value of this friction force will be different. I mean, because the viscosity is different, so that comes from the property of the fluid. So now layer 1 will exert the same force F on layer 2, but then you have the below layer, say layer 3, will try to oppose with some friction F dash. So like that the velocity will go down. Okay, so the layer 2 will again, the layer 3 will try to slow down layer 2, layer 2 will try to slow down layer 1. So that is what happens. Okay, so and all this is because of the internal friction, and that property of the fluid is called viscosity. So imagine, imagine this statement: we move with relative ease in air. It is easy to move in air than water, but not in water. Okay, and even more difficult in oil, more difficult. So imagine you are walking in air, and similarly you are walking in water, and similarly you are walking in oil. So which will require more effort? So the oil case will require more effort than water case, and in air it is very easy to walk. Or so as to say something like this: you have a steel ball, okay, and you have water, you have air, steel ball, and you have oil. Okay, so in which case steel ball reaches the bottom of the tank first? Well, it will reach in air first, followed by water, and followed by oil. Because in oil, when you try to move it down, in oil the resistance that is exerted by fluid, that is more. Okay, the drag force by oil is more, so it will take more time to reach bottom, whereas the drag force in air is less, lowest of all the three, and in water it is intermediate. So it will reach the bottom of the tank in air first, then water, then oil, because the drag force that comes because of viscosity is more in oil. Okay, that's the thing. So all this is manifestation of viscosity. So let's derive an expression for viscosity. Okay, so imagine you have a top plate moving, you have a stationary surface, in between you have a fluid. Okay, and you are moving a plate with F. So after initial transients, you will observe that the upper plate will move continuously with the velocity v. Okay, so now the shear stress, so you can say that the fluid layer deforms continuously under a shear stress, that is W. Now what is shear stress? let me write down first. So the fluid layer continuously deforms under the shear force. Okay, say so something like this, you have all the fluid particles you are tracking. After some time it will come like this. Okay, so the shear stress that is developed is force, tangential force by the area of the plate that is exposed to the liquid. Okay, and now if you imagine that this gap, the gap is small, the velocity profile is linear. The velocity profile that is built up is linear. So I can write u of y. So here I am calling all this u of y is linear, and this angle, say if you imagine, if you take a, if u is at any point, the velocity is u at a distance y measured from the bottom plate. So I can write u by y. So u of y I am writing because it's a function of y. So without confusing, let's write u by y is equal to v by the total gap, which is L. So imagine that this gap is L. So u is y by L into v, where v is the velocity of the plate. Okay. So now let's say in time dt, okay, in time dt, this, what is this distance? This distance, let's call this distance to be, in time dt the plate moves by angle dB. Okay, so I can write tan of, okay, this distance is basically dA. I mean it moves by distance dA, and this angle in time dt is d beta. So tan of d beta is basically dA by L. Okay, assuming that it's linear profile, but angle in time dt, because it has moved less angle, so tan beta is dB only. Tan of theta is equal to theta for very small theta, right? So that is moved by the plate in time dt. So dA is nothing but distance, which is nothing but speed of the plate into time by L into d beta. Okay, so I can write d beta by dt is equal to v by L. Okay, and now this is defined as the change in angle, the change in shear angle, you can say, because the fluid basically shears or tries to change the shape. So change in shear angle with respect to time. Okay, now it has been observed from experiments that most fluids, okay, most fluids, the shear stress or the shear stress is proportional to your rate of deformation, which is nothing but this, to the rate of shear deformation. Okay, and this is your rate of shear deformation. So tau is proportional to d beta by dt. That is what most of the fluids it is observed. So y by L, v by L, okay, I can also write this v by L from this expression. If I take the derivative du by dy, okay, if I take the derivative is v by L. If I take the derivative, you will get this. So v by L is basically du by dy, and that's why this, the shear stress is proportional to du by dy. This is what is observed for most of the fluids, and such fluids are called Newtonian fluids. Okay, such fluids are called Newtonian fluids. Now you might be wondering, now what happens for other fluids? So other fluids, it is observed that tau is some proportional to some cubic, it has cubic or exponent power of du by dy. So this is basically the velocity gradient. Okay, basically the velocity gradient. So this is for other fluids, and those are called non-Newtonian fluids. So but most of the time we make an assumption that the fluids is our Newtonian fluid. Now let's see what is proportionality constant here. So let's continue our discussion. So the shear stress what we got is proportional to du by dy, and it's also because the profile is linear, we can say V by L, where L is the gap and V is the velocity of the plate. Okay, so either of these, okay, this or this is the standard thing, and this is the, just if the profile is linear, then it comes out to be this. Now the proportionality constant is defined as mu. Okay, so this is your velocity gradient and this is your shear stress. Applied. So, and this value is basically the viscosity, and here it is termed as dynamic viscosity. Okay, so what it means is, if I plot, say, how to understand this, this is like y is equal to mx. So if I plot velocity gradient on x-axis and shear stress applied y-axis, so the slope of this line, okay, so because this, say this angle is theta, so mu will be basically the tan theta of that, right? The slope of the line, okay. So if I do an experiment, okay, between velocity, so now what it means is, say for a given tau, if I have say if I draw such experiments, if I carry out in the experiment, in the sense you have a top plate, you are applying shear stress, which is basically force by the area on which you are applying, and you have the bottom plate and you have the liquid here. So say this fluid can be air, water and oil. So now if you plot such lines, it will appear something like this. This is for air, this is for water, and the oil is quite steep, showing that the value of slope is more. Okay, so now say for a given tau, say I am applying a given force, and based on that I can calculate. So for a given force, okay, for a given force I can see that air has, in air I can move the plate easily, because I can move the plate easily. For a given force, the velocity gradient is more for air, so I can move the plate very easily, whereas in water it's intermediate, and in oil it's less, the velocity gradient is less, or the velocity of the plate, because this du by dy, imagine that it's v by l, and if the gap I have maintained same, so velocity of the plate will be more in air than in water than in oil. And that was the reason why that steel ball example which I gave you some minutes back, in oil, because the gravitational force is same, but the drag force that comes because of this viscosity, that is more. Okay, so I mean, just keeping that example in mind, you can understand that. So in oil, the for now here we are applying the same force. So for the same force, if I do the same experiment keeping air, water, oil in between, in oil I will get less velocity of the plate for the same force F applied, whereas in water it will be somewhat more, in air it will be more. So this shows that this is the slope is basically the property of fluid, okay, and it is here, going by the unit analysis, you can say that the units of mu are, so kg, I mean, how do I say, because okay, the units of tau by velocity gradient, du by dy. So tau, the units are force by area by velocity gradient is basically v by l. So keeping in the units, it is Newton per meter square by meter per second by meter, right? So per second, so it is Newton second per meter square, Newton by meters, so Newton a meter square, I can write Pascal. So Pascal second is the unit of dynamic viscosity. Okay, and in generally in CGS unit we also write one poise is a unit, and one poise is 0.1 Pascal second. I mean, this is the CGS unit in centigrade, grams and seconds, and this is in the MKS unit. MKS unit of, generally in CGS it is used, and then but that's the how they are related. I mean, if you do the similar analysis in CGS, you will find out that one poise is 0.1 Pascal second. Okay, so this is about dynamic viscosity. Now sometimes another terminology is defined as kinematic viscosity, and which is nothing but the ratio of your dynamic viscosity by your density. So it is mu by rho. That is what we define as kinematic velocity. And so these units are this, any of the mu will have the units of Newton second per meter square, and rho has kg by meter cube because mass by volume. So in a minute we'll see what is density, but right now, okay, so you can convert this into Newton is again force, which is ma or kg, acceleration Newton meter per second square. So if I convert everything there, I'll be getting meter square by second. So here also this is the MKS unit. In CGS the unit is one stroke, and you can miss if you do the same analysis in CGS, you will end up getting in CGS. So one stroke is basically centimeter square per second, and that value is 10 power minus 4 meter square per second. This is how it is defined. Okay, so this is about dynamic viscosity, kinematic viscosity. Now let's see how this viscometer works. Viscometer is basically used to measure viscosity. Okay, so it works on the same principle as whatever we have discussed. So you have a shaft here, basically you have two concentric cylinders. Okay, I'm just enlarging the gap between, or zooming the gap between those two. So you have two concentric cylinders. Like in your first year you would have seen, first year BTech, you would have had a workshop and you would have seen a lot of viscometers and how to measure viscosity. But the basic idea is you have two concentric cylinder and you have a fluid in between. So this is the fluid in between. Okay, and now torque is basically two concentric cylinders carrying fluid in between. Okay, and now torque is given to the inner shaft. Torque is given to the inner shaft. Okay, and okay, so now what happens is so if you just take the inner shaft and you give the torque, now because of the fluid present, the fluid will exert resistance which is opposite to the motion of the shaft, and this, so now if I take, say let me draw the outer also. If I take a small portion, this is stationary, the outer cylinder is stationary. So this is like the outer, this portion if I take and zoom in over, is like the inner thing is like a plate. Okay, and you have a fluid in between, and this is a stationary surface. So the shear stress that is set up, the shear stress set up on the walls of inner cylinder is basically like your two plates. So this thing is uniform everywhere, like wherever I take, the same amount of shear stress is set up. So the shear stress that is set up, I can write that as mu into velocity of the this, say the velocity of the point P, point P is this, the velocity of the point P by the gap, right? Velocity of the point P. So this is moving with the velocity of P. Now if I know the dimensions of the inner cylinder and something is moving, say with omega, so velocity at a point on the surface of that shaft, I can write V is equal to R omega. This is from dynamics. So now, and omega is again related to your revolutions per minute by, so n is revolutions per minute by 60 becomes revolutions per second into 2 pi will give you the radians per second, which is omega. So this is what is the shear stress that is set up on the wall. Now the torque that is applied has to be equal to the torque. So let me write this, the torque applied has to be equal to the torque, the resisting torque due to shear stress, okay, and which is again due to the fluid, okay, because then only, and then because of this, then only the shaft will move with constant speed. Shaft will move with constant speed. So it's like this, the torque so yeah, I think this figure, if you just correlate with this figure, the airplane torque towards clockwise, so omega will be clockwise, and therefore any point on this will be moving in this direction. Let me correct this. So omega will be in this direction, velocity of any point on the shaft will be in this direction, and the friction force is as indicated this way. Okay, so now the torque due to friction is basically tau into the area of the cylinder, which is nothing but 2 pi r, the periphery into L, okay, 2 pi r into the L. So this gap I can, okay, this gap, okay, this is capital L actually. Capital L is the length of the cylinder. So 2 pi r is this distance and L is basically the in-depth length. So 2 pi r into L is basically the force, total force exerted, into, if you multiply with the radius, you will get the torque, right? Torque is nothing but the moment that is exerted, sum of all the fluid force, viscous force will exert a moment or a torque about the shaft center, inner shaft center. So this is tau into 2 pi r square into L. Now how do I relate tau? Tau is again given by this, mu into V by L. Remember this L is the gap, okay, 2 pi r square L. Now if I want to convert V in terms of speed, I'll get something like this. So V I can convert as V, I can just convert in this, so I can write 2 pi r square by L, okay, mu and L, capital L, into V is again r omega, okay, so I can write mu 2 pi r cube capital L by small l into omega, where omega is again 2 pi n, so 2 pi whole square to r cube L by small l to n by 60, okay. So now this is the torque applied. So if I, so from this is a general expression, okay, with this viscometer words. So torque I know, okay, so from this torque applied will be known once, and speed of the shaft I can measure with a tachometer. Torque applied is what you have to measure it. So from this equation, everything is known. It's known from the measurements. Like torque T and speed N, okay, and dimensions are all a gap, I know how much is the gap, L is the length of the shaft, so all these are known. So from this mu, so from this mu can be calculated. So mu is basically your dynamic viscosity. So this is a simple measurement which you can calculate the dynamic viscosity, and this is basically the rough idea to how a viscometer works. Okay, so you have a two concentric cylinders and a fluid in between, and so basically by this simple equation which we have seen before, just previous slide, and we can basically derive a general expression. But this concept is important. Torque applied on the shaft when it equals to the resisting torque due to shear stress of the fluid, then the shaft will move with constant speed. So at that point we measure the speed n and the torque applied, and then we can straight away write this equation, and this is how it works.